The year 1991 was a pivotal year. Not only did the United States first establish a constant presence in the Middle East, but this was also the year when the Soviet Union was falling apart, and the World Wide Web was just getting started. The year saw the rise of alternative music, with the release of a new grunge record that would reach far beyond the city of Seattle and into the homes of kids across the country. With musical taste changing, so too was fashion, and toward the end of 1991, nothing was more in demand than an old flannel shirt. On January 12th, Congress voted to give George Bush the authority to use military force against Iraq. The vote was 250 to 183. 5 days later, a 34-nation coalition led by the United States launched an air and naval offensive against Iraq that continued for 5 weeks. The ground assault launched from Saudi Arabia would end up yielding a quick and decisive victory for the coalition forces. On February 1st, writer John Grisham published his second novel titled The Firm, which became the best-selling novel of the year. The legal thriller was one that everyone was talking about, and it spent 47 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. February 14th saw the release of the film The Silence of the Lambs, which was based on the book by Thomas Harris. The movie was directed by Jonathan Demme and starred Jodie Foster as FBI agent Clarice Starling, and who could forget Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter. On February 28th, the Gulf War ended after Iraq accepted a ceasefire agreement following their retreat from Kuwait. Following a coalition ground assault, the Iraqi army was quickly pushed out of Kuwait and forced into surrendering. On March 3rd, 4 Los Angeles police officers were filmed beating taxi driver Rodney King after a pursuit through the streets of Los Angeles. The video shocked the city, and the events that followed shocked the nation. On May 9th, actor Michael Landon appeared on The Tonight Show and spoke to Johnny Carson candidly about his cancer diagnosis. The appearance came roughly 2 months before Landon's death from pancreatic cancer. On the morning of June 10th, an 11-year-old named J.C. Dugard was walking to her bus stop in Myers, California, when Philip and Nancy Garrido tased and kidnapped the girl. J.C.'s kidnapping was witnessed by her stepfather and other children waiting at the bus stop, none of whom could stop it. It would be 18 years before she would be found. On June 12th, the Chicago Bulls, led by Michael Jordan, won their first NBA championship by defeating the Los Angeles Lakers. The championship win would be the start of a dynasty that would continue throughout the decade. June 23rd brought us Sonic the Hedgehog when the video game was released in the United States. Nearly 1 million copies were sold by Christmas, making the Sega Genesis game console a very popular gift. July 1st saw the release of the mega hit Terminator 2: Judgment Day. The sequel, directed by James Cameron, leaned heavily on CGI to bring the T-1000 to life, and it made for stunning visual effects that had audiences amazed. The film would become the 3rd biggest release of all time, behind Star Wars and E.T. On July 22nd, serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer was arrested after the remains of 11 men and boys were found in his Milwaukee, Wisconsin apartment. Police soon found out that he was involved in 6 additional killings. On July 26th, actor Paul Reubens, also known as Pee Wee Herman, was arrested in Sarasota, Florida, after exposing himself at an adult movie theater. Reubens maintained his innocence, but he entered a guilty plea and received community service and a monetary fine. On August 6th, Tim Berners-Lee announced the World Wide Web project would be released to other institutions outside of CERN. They did this while also releasing the very first website, which was a catalyst that would lead to the birth of the Internet. August 11th was the start of a series of new animated shows on Nickelodeon. Nicktoons, as they were called, introduced the shows Doug, Rugrats, and the Ren and Stimpy Show to audiences for the first time. On September 24th, grunge band Nirvana released the album titled Nevermind. The album became a surprise success, largely due to the popularity of its first single, Smells Like Teen Spirit, which became an anthem for teens in the early 1990s. The album would ultimately sell 11 million copies in the US. On September 30th, television audiences were introduced to Jerry Springer and his tabloid talk show called The Jerry Springer Show. The former mayor of Cincinnati began his show as a political talk show, but with poor ratings, the show was revamped to discuss more controversial topics, which made it a hit a few years later. On October 11th, the United States Senate Judiciary Committee began interviewing both Supreme Court candidate Clarence Thomas and his former aide, Anita Hill, who was alleging that Thomas sexually harassed her while she worked for him. Thomas would go on to be confirmed and would replace retiring Associate Justice Thurgood Marshall. On October 16th, George Hennard drove his truck into the front of a Luby's cafeteria in Killeen, Texas, and then gunned down 24 people in the restaurant before committing suicide. The crime was the largest mass shooting by a single person in U.S. history up until that point. On November 7th, Los Angeles Lakers point guard Magic Johnson announced at a press conference that he was HIV positive, effectively ending his NBA career. The shocking news made Johnson one of the first sports stars ever to go public about his HIV-positive status. To finish the year, on December 25th and 26th, the Cold War officially ended, with the dissolution of the Soviet Union. President Mikhail Gorbachev resigned, and the republics that made up the Union declared that it no longer existed. The announcement concluded 74 years of Soviet history.